What is going on, IF Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and today we're going to talk about 5 intangible benefits to intermittent fasting. If you're brand new to intermittent fasting, or if you're thinking that you want to start intermittent fasting, these are some benefits that usually don't get talked about a lot on YouTube or social media. There are a lot of science-based benefits to intermittent fasting, but for lack of a better word, these are the intangible benefits that you can experience with intermittent fasting. Stay tuned. Before I start, Fledge Fitness jump ropes are still in stock, only $16.50, aluminum handle, swivel design for maximum speed. You can't go wrong with the Fledge Fitness jump rope. The card will be right here on the top right, and the link will be in the description below. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the first intangible benefit to intermittent fasting. Time availability. That's right, it gives you more time to focus on the things that you feel are more important than simply just constantly having to eat. You'd be surprised how much eating all the time takes you away from daily, everyday activities. So when you do intermittent fasting and you compress your window for eating, you don't have to focus so heavy on what you're gonna eat next, what's your next meal. It makes it much easier to control all of that stuff. Because you're not eating breakfast, lunch, dinner, and sometimes breakfast snack, lunch snack, dinner snack, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time that you stop to eat. And then when you do intermittent fasting, as a positive side effect, that time window is free now for you. It's open for you. So time availability is actually something that I put on the top of the list as one of the better intangible benefits of intermittent fasting. Now let's go ahead and move on to number 2, controlling hunger. Intermittent fasting assists you in controlling hunger. And the reason it does this is because your body gets used to the rhythms that you create over time. So if you always eat in a normal breakfast, lunch, and dinner setup, and you've been doing it for 25 years, you've been doing it for 30 years, you've been doing it for 23 years, whatever the case may be, it's hard for your body to snap out of that rhythm, that eating habit of eating 3 times a day, in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. But what intermittent fasting does is that because there's a structure where you don't do those things, you're forcing yourself to do it outside of what your body's asking you to do. And then you just mold your body into the new habit. And inadvertently, you're controlling your hunger at the same time. It gives you a little battle for about 2 weeks. It fights against that change. It doesn't want to do that change. But if you keep that balance and that structure, your body has no choice. It actually starts to create a process where it accepts this new protocol. And once that happens, intermittent fasting becomes very, very easy. There's a lot of people that I've talked to that tell me, whoa, there's no way that I can do intermittent fasting. I'll be super tired. I'll have no energy. I wouldn't be able to work. I wouldn't be able to do anything if I can't eat in the morning or what have you. And then they realize little by little, as they try it for the first time, and then they see it as a challenge, and they keep on going, and then they realize, like maybe a week into it, a week and a half, 2 weeks, that they don't feel that hunger and they don't feel that they need to eat. And this is all because your body has adjusted to the new rhythm that you've put in front of it. Your body can adapt, and the positive thing for you is that, especially if you're trying to lose weight, that when your body adapts, it now adapted to a position where you can control hunger much better. All right, let's move on to intangible benefit number 3, and that's saving money. You actually save money, and I understand that a lot of people are going to say, well, wait a second, if I'm eating the same thing, or if I should be eating the same thing, how am I saving money? Because I'm still eating whatever amount of calories that I'm supposed to eat. Well, here's the thing. If you are a person who doesn't track calories, for example, and you just go about your day, there are moments where you just snack for no reason at all. If you pass by a store, you might just stop by, and you might grab a bag of chips or grab something to drink or whatever. You might get a Gatorade or Powerade. If you drive in and you see a McDonald's and you haven't eaten in a while, you might walk into that McDonald's or go through the drive-thru, get something to eat. You end up spending money without knowing. One thing is eating over your caloric intake, but the other thing is that you're just buying food for no reason. With intermittent fasting, you don't do that because you create essentially invisible walls where you cannot buy anything because it's not time for you to eat. So that knee-jerk reaction of just buying food simply because you're next to a place where you can buy food, that gets eliminated. You've created structure, and now you have a small time window to eat your food, and usually you already have that in mind. Usually you will already have in mind what it is that you're going to eat in that small time window. So yes, although going to the store is just a few dollars here and there, those things tend to add up. Food tends to be the most expensive thing for most people when it comes to a day-to-day basis. Now moving on to intangible number 4, taming bad habits. Now, everything I just talked about are bad habits. Going to the store, stopping by a fast food restaurant for no reason at all, just eating because it's the morning and because it's the afternoon and because it's the evening, when you've already gotten the nutrition or the caloric needs for the day, but you're simply going to eat because it's dinner time, or you're simply going to eat because it's lunchtime. A lot of bad habits are created from your childhood. For example, watching TV. A lot of times when people watch TV, that signals to them that it's time to eat. And when you do intermittent fasting, if it's not your time window and you're watching TV and you're working your way into this structure, into this intermittent fasting protocol, you're not going to eat. And that's going to send those signals to your body that you're not eating simply because you're watching TV, that you're not eating simply because you're passing a fast food restaurant and you always go in there, or you always go into the Starbucks. You're sending those signals to your body and they create this new habit, or it tames those bad habits. So you're no longer doing those bad habits. It's a way to guide yourself from moving away from bad eating habits. Of course, you can go ahead and try to break these habits without intermittent fasting, but intermittent fasting does this as a side effect. It is a positive side effect to intermittent fasting. Simply focusing on trying to complete an intermittent fasting protocol will bring with it correcting these habits without you even knowing. It's kind of like in the background, helping you make better choices. And moving on to number 5, which bounces off of all of that stuff, is hyper awareness of what you're eating. So now, because you're so focused on eating within that small time frame, you're hyper aware of what you're eating. Unlike when you have no time structure for when you eat, if there's no time structure for when you're eating and there's no focus there, you're not going to really know, how much you've eaten throughout the day. You're not going to know the caloric intake. You're not going to have a rough estimate. You're not going to have any of that because you're eating throughout the day. But when you do intermittent fasting, you're hyper aware. You see your meals and you can recall what you ate on Monday. You can recall what you ate on Tuesday, because being in a caloric deficit or being in a caloric surplus, those things are not just daily. It's a monthly tally, a weekly tally. Being able to recall your meals, it makes it easier for you when your meals are compressed and in a very small time window. Not only that, it also lets you know that, like maybe this is not the most healthiest thing. It lets you know, are your meals even that healthy? And a lot of people try to go into intermittent fasting because they can eat whatever they want, but then they tend to realize when looking at their foods and looking at what they're eating that they could adjust a few things here and there to make it actually a bit more healthier for them. Since that's the only time that they're going to eat throughout the day, they kind of want to improve the nutrition of what they're eating. It makes you lean more towards balancing your meals. So the hyper awareness of what you're eating is super good. It's much easier to know how many calories you're eating when your meals are smaller than when your meals are spread out throughout the day. So those are the 5 intangible benefits to intermittent fasting. If you're new to intermittent fasting, or if you want to start intermittent fasting and you want to know a little bit more about what you're going to get, what's your bang for your buck in terms of going into this protocol, I wanted you to know these things since they're not touched on much by people on social media or on YouTube. And hopefully this gives you more information to make your decision. And of course, I want to thank my patrons from my Patreon, and I'm going to put their names right up here.